Introducing Minor Wisdom Quintet.
1, 2, a skidoo-doo-doo.
Minor Wisdom.
Another week of TETA content. This week, I've got the legendary, and again, these legends hate when I use that word, but it's true, the legendary Jim Rambo. Most of you know his name, but you don't know who he is. You know nothing about him. His interview took place in the Techland booth. Again, thanks to Techland. I'm going to keep shouting out to those guys for the next couple of weeks because most of the content that you're going to hear over the next couple of weeks culminated at TETA. And then the timing's going to work out great because then Thespians is going to be right after all of this stuff gets exhausted. So I'll be able to talk to more of you at Texas Thespians in November. We've got Junior Festival this week in the South, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see a lot of you people there. I will be there helping with the kind of tech booth, the petting zoo, if you will, the tech petting zoo. I should be teaching a couple workshops as well to some of those middle schoolers. We'll see how that goes. There is a reason I do not teach middle school, and we will not get into that on this podcast. But again, this week I'm with Jim Rambo. If you are new to the podcast, please like it. Please give it a good review. I know my voice is monotone. I get it at the beginning of all these. That's why this podcast turned into an interview podcast where I do very little talking, or I try to do very little talking because my voice does not fluctuate, even though right now in my head I feel like I am singing an opera, but I know it doesn't translate well on the podcast. Anyway, I've had plenty of students tell me they fall asleep to my podcast on occasion, so that's good. Anyway, it's doing a good job. But Jim Rambo's on this week. Have I said that once or twice? I've also got a fundraiser, an idea. One of the booths at TETA, Zingers, is a fundraiser idea, and so you're going to hear from him, a couple minutes from him at the beginning here, and then throughout the next couple weeks, again, you'll hear some content from TETA regarding why people are at TETA. You'll also hear some companies. These companies were just booths sitting down, and I thought I'd give them some plugs, on the podcast. They're all here for us, as my dog barks in the background and distracts me. I'm assuming it's another Amazon package for my kids. Well, enough of me. Again, make sure you are liking. T-shirts will be on sale at the end of this month. I'm going to start those in November, some T-shirt sales for you guys again, and it's a fundraising thing for me. I gotta need. Man, English is bad for me today. I got to get the monies so that I can travel to places and get some content for you guys. Have I talked enough? Good. Thanks. Again, I hope to see some of you guys at Thespian South. Make sure you guys are signing up for the big festival, the big Thespian Festival in time. Money is due soon. Registration is due soon. We're doing really well with that, thanks to Amy Jordan. So kicking some getting you guys booked in some hotels. So appreciative of all that. Hope everybody has a good week. And to all my tribe members, I hope everyone has a healthy Yom Kippur and safe fast. Here is this week's Groaner joke. In honor of Yom Kippur this week, waiter goes up to a table full of Jewish women and asks, "Is anything all right?"
Hi, I'm Roy with Zinger's Comedy Fundraising, and we are DFW's only family-friendly, clean improv comedy show, and we now do family-friendly comedy fundraisers that are designed specifically for theater arts. We are the only theater arts-specific fundraiser. We're it. So if you were looking for theater arts fundraising, come see us. I started this business a little over 4 years ago, and being a former theater arts club president myself when I was in high school and a thespian, I know that theater arts have a really hard time raising money. No one really focuses on theater arts. They're always focusing on football and band and choir and baseball. No one really ever comes for theater arts. So you're like, you know what? we want to help you guys raise money because we know how much you need it. So we're here to help you raise money. What we provide is a family-friendly professional comedy show. We come to you, and we do a show. The difference is, the reason that this is theater arts specific is because your students are actually part of the experience. They're part of the show. We can either challenge your students to an improv battle where the audience gets to decide the winner. Now, that's obviously for those who already have students who like to do improv, and maybe you already have your own improv troupe of students. And if you don't, no problem. We come out, we actually do a workshop with your students, and including giving them a book that helps them learn more about improv, and not just how to do it, but why to do certain things. So it really breaks down into the details. And it also helps them form their own improv troupe for next year. Because you know what? If you do an improv troupe with your students, not only do you raise money with us, you keep raising money the rest of the year because you can do monthly shows, charge them $3-4 a show, ticket for each show, and raise another $1,000 by the end of the year. So we want to help you raise money all year round, not just with our show. And our fundraisers raise an average of $5,000 for our clients. It is designed to pay for itself, so you don't have to worry about the cost because this thing is designed to pay for itself. You don't have to worry about putting any money into it from your budget. We don't want your money from the budget. We want to make money for your budget. So that's also another big plus for us. And this is a great fundraiser. Your students would love it because they're going to get to be on stage performing with professional improv actors. And how often do your students get to perform with professional actors? So they're going to be very excited. They're going to want to bring everybody out to see them on stage performing with professionals, and that's going to bring a large crowd and a lot of money for your theater arts program. Again, I'm Roy with Zinger's Comedy Fundraising, and we want to help you turn funny into money. The way we make money is that we just charge you a flat fee based on what you want for your show. We customize every fundraiser to every school client that we have, so depending on what that client needs, we can form the fundraiser around what they need. Nope, we do not take a cut of the ticket sales or anything like that because that just punches you for a good show. If you do really well, we take 50% of your tickets. Well, that's less money you just raised. So what we do is we just charge a flat rate. Once that flat rate is paid, 100% of everything you make is yours. And we actually, because our fundraiser is not just a show, it is a step-by-step detailed process on how to perform a Comedy Night fundraiser from the very first step all the way to the end. We walk you through the entire thing step by step. We make it as simple as possible for you. And one of our first steps we do is try to tell you how to pay for us. So we actually tell you how to pay for us so that before you've even sold a single ticket, we're already paid for, and you're already making money 100%. Yeah, the fee is forgotten about, and you're good to go. We travel pretty much within the state of Texas. Now, if it's farther away, obviously that's going to affect the price a little bit. But like I said, we work with our clients to customize everything for them. And we also help them to pay for our services with a lot of helpful advice that most of our clients, before they've even sold a single ticket, they've already actually not only paid for us, but using the process that we give you to pay for us, not only have they paid for us, but they've already raised money. And you can also find more information at familycomedyfundraisers.com. With an S. Family Comedy Fundraisers with an S at the end of it.com.
This week again is Mr. Jim Rambo. The man does still some great volunteer work, even though he is retired, enjoying retirement. But he was in charge of the celebrities this year, and we had a great celebrity at TETA. If you weren't there, you missed out.
Well, my principal background was a bachelor's degree from Abilene Christian University, which was Abilene Christian College back then, and my Master of Arts degree from Texas Tech. I did begin teaching high school for 2 years, way up in the panhandle of Texas, Ochiltree County. They called it Ochiltree Nation because it was closer to Denver than it was to Austin.
Sure.
So taught there, moved to Weatherford College, taught and rebuilt the theater curriculum there. They had moved from a very old campus, the original turn of the century campus
Sure.
to a new campus, so a theater was eliminated, so they were ready to build the program back. So my first year was building a theater and curriculum. Then 13 years at Western Texas College. Both of these were one-person programs.
Yep.
So doing it all. I'm more of a generalist. Then we moved to Waco at McLennan College from '92 until I retired in 2014.
Okay.
My principal love and devotion, of course, is acting and directing. The devotion also to freshmen and sophomores, a missional kind of level.
Sure.
The benefit, if they can build, as you well know, if you can build what you can build with them discipline-wise, even if it's boot camp kind of quality, and making sure that they're not specializing, that they are, the technicians having to take acting class.
Well-rounded.
The acting class having to take stagecraft and design, that feel like that, just like many will say from a generalist standpoint, that influences. Your love may be, like mine, acting and directing.
Yep.
But yet the influence of all of those years and the continued influence with lighting designers,
Sure.
the inspiration, the scenic designers that get the metaphor before I do,
Right.
as a director, and the inspiration and the give and the take. We had 21 wonderful years in Waco working with a group of 5 others. So I had to change my hat to a large extent,
Right.
because I had done it all. My wife built lots of costumes during those 16 years,
Sure.
working without pay.
Right.
So her influence certainly was extremely important when I wanted to do something that required something other than pulling stock.
Sure.
I think the quality of what I call, many of us are externalists, many of us are internalists, depending on where you came from. I'm a '60s child,
Right.
so the internalist principle certainly is there and abundant. But I in my acting classes taught a third level. Because if you look back at the records of so many people, other areas of influence, for example, music or art, even marching band, influenced, what they were seeing visually,
Sure.
compositionally, the beauty of the stage. But that third level that I recognize on a regular basis is strictly the love of literature.
Mm-hmm.
We probably fell in love with dramatic literature, not through our theater teachers, but through our early days of English class in high school.
Yep.
If they loved it, we had a tendency to be able to fall in love. I remember Henry David Thoreau,
Right.
because of this deep-voiced, huge English teacher who literally kind of smothered herself, in the love and affection of what was said in Walden.
Right.
And that appreciation, that stirring inside. And so I think that probably we overlooked that. And that means that do we really need to have a theater curriculum? Do we need degrees in theater? Well, obviously I certainly communicated that on
Sure.
a regular basis. But the real practicality is look at how many people are functioning in areas and being recognized even on the university level because of their years of life experience.
Right.
Their influence in art, their influence in our choreographer at McLennan, a dear friend of mine, whose influence was he was a feature twirler at Baylor.
Sure.
And so
My band director at my school right now that's his proudest. He was a twirler.
Yeah.
So,
and that influence certainly of performance, but the influence of, in that case, precision, at the same time physicality, led him to an enormous career in choreography musical theater.
Yeah.
And those influence, I think, are so important. They also make one much more marketable.
Yeah, that's true.
In days when you're not getting acting jobs
Yeah.
and directing jobs, those who have, in this day and time, man, if these kids have computer skills at the kazoo, they're more likely to get a better job in New York or LA because of those experiences, even though they're there because they want to audition.
Sure.
They want to be able to do, or to move into, certainly, the tech field because of that.
Yeah.
And it's much easier for them to do that than old guys like me.
Yeah.
Who still used a manual typewriter up until 91, 92.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to recognize and to call it out.
Right.
So calling it out, particularly with freshmen and sophomores, was really missional.
Right.
Seeing what they could do, seeing those capabilities.
What is from your time when you started to when you retired? What is one of the larger, and there could be a couple of answers, what is one of the larger changes you saw in your students, maybe ideologically, or the way they were trained from their high school days, their middle school days? What's one of those things that you saw either they gained or depreciated over time?
It's a good question because to me the marked difference was exactly what you're holding in your hands right now.
Sure.
The cell phone.
Yeah.
The dispension of, from live communication, mostly seen through students dropping by your office.
Right.
That percentage in the last probably 10 years, I saw a marked change, and they could text, and that was sufficient.
Right.
Rather than drop in and start a conversation. Not that we didn't counsel and talk one-on-one.
Right.
But it's that still alive, present tense, rather than technically based.
Sure.
To get the right emoji or to get the right font, in terms of what they're saying.
Did you change? Did you adjust to that?
I don't think I adjusted quite as well.
Okay.
In terms of, because that was one of my strengths. That
Sure.
was one of the areas that I could indeed tell them, okay, you're walking through this difficult phase in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get the role in college that you wanted because there are 50 other people like you and
Right.
as good as you are. And that, they still needed that reinforced kind of quality. That's where, we could capitalize as a 2-year institution. We could capitalize on that nurturing. The nurturing still, to me, is better live. So I do text, but I text with punctuation.
I do too. Oh man, if my students are listening to that right
and
now,
you're so
they
young.
know. Well, it's still Bob Singleton was my mentor.
Enough said.
So so he trained me really well.
Yes.
And to go back on your original point a little bit ago about the actor needs the tech needs the acting. That was a Bob Singleton philosophy as well. I was on stage doing musicals, but I was at HSPVA as a technician, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. I wasn't complaining. You knew what you were walking into when you walked into it. So I'm the same way. I get on my students all the time it's part of why I took Twitter away from them from a couple years ago, for the simple fact it wasn't about the content. It was about that they didn't take the time to just simply put a period or a comma or capitalize the letter I.
Exactly.
It drove me nuts. So I completely understand that.
Somehow it still is, extremely important. I want to believe that. Where it's been diminished. But again, it's that nature of still that intimacy of eyeball to eyeball, like your eye contact is makes me want to communicate and listen to you, and that exchange between, and it is that quality of ultimately, the freshman and sophomore years are the most exciting years on the college level, in my opinion, but they're also, places where things come up in their lives,
Sure.
like depression,
Right.
or emotional problems that they could.
Because they might be alone for the first time too.
And
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and they feel like a number, even though it's a smaller kind of institution.
Did you find that you became a therapist most of the time? Because you have these kids that are in a safe space, quote unquote, that they can trust you as a director and as a friend. That you ended up getting kids coming to visit you, because even Doc Ivins will talk about how he's got people coming into his office and they just need to talk to somebody.
Well, I think there are our colleagues that saying, okay, well, somebody who's trained in that ought to be, but I actually don't prescribe to that.
Right.
Not saying that if I determine someone is bipolar, that they certainly need to be able to go to
Sure.
a psychiatrist. But it's still about caring. It's still about compassion. It's still about you're not giving therapeutic, even though that it is therapeutic.
Right.
They're giving, in the key to what you're saying in a nurturing environment is the possibility of losing. In other words, you're risking something. You're risking what is going on in your life that you've never communicated.
Right.
Because those do hit the pavement at 18 and 19 years of age.
Yeah.
And that they have dismissed, all of their other lives if there's injury, emotional injury.
Yeah.
So, and plus, the ability to be able to experiment through different text and to be able to look at it from a different perspective.
Sure.
I always said, I don't want. I may be, a nuts and bolts down to the index finger, do it my way kind of quality, but ultimately what I wanted was that they don't need me.
Right.
If I create somebody who is emotionally dependent upon me, I haven't done any help to them whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's warm and it's cozy, but the issue is that it's going to reoccur, that there's going to go to someone else that creates an emotional dependency.
What some fun questions. What's a show that you wish you could go back and redo?
Well, of late, since I've been retired 4 years ago, I'm a huge Shaw fan. I really loved Candida.
Okay.
And for some reason, I've been envisioning that show again.
Yep.
I repeated a few shows, not very many.
Yep.
I guess I was a hippie about that. It's like, no, I'm not going to repeat.
I'm the same.
It's a whole different school. It's 20 years later.
Why did you repeat the ones you repeated? Was it a financial?
No, it was a lot of qualities. I think the first show that I repeated was Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay.
Knowing that we needed, that was moving colleges.
Sure.
And because of some faculty changes and the large population of Jewish people in Waco.
Yeah.
Huge population.
Yep. As a Jew, I'm familiar.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. So that became a smart move for us.
Yeah.
That we, my first show
community.
there
It's a community.
was sold out before, before it opened. Kind of thing. Besides, it's a beautiful story.
Right.
Continues to be a beautiful story, and if you've got a Tevye, go for it.
Yeah, do it. yeah,
go
exactly.
But so that repetition really came more about as to location.
Sure.
I did repeat, and would probably love to do it even a third time. I've done Hamlet before, but I've also done Hamlet ESP, Paul Baker's, and of course Paul was a Wacoite for many years at Baylor, and but I did it in Waco, but I also had done it at Western Texas College, and that inspiration was really kind of my preoccupation with postmodernism.
Sure.
And it was so early, it was so 50s when postmodernism didn't even invent itself.
Yeah.
But Paul was working. When you remember that Paul worked with 5 Hamlets and 5 Ophelias and 5 Gertrudes.
Yeah.
You can imagine the range. Well, ultimately, the script, came down to 3 Hamlets.
Right.
So that was more out of, really I loved working with structuralism.
Sure.
And that was always a fire to me, whether the audience understood it or not.
Right.
Sometimes you just simply didn't do it.
Right.
You did it for other reasons, and we do that.
Sure.
That's why we do a season of shows.
Yes.
So that we can still pull an audience, and then when one doesn't pull the box office, you can say, well, we're counterbalancing here.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
rather than doing all, yes, musicals will sell anywhere, everywhere.
Sure.
But plus, it's the aspect of training.
Right.
Probably another show I repeated was Pomerantz's The Elephant Man.
Okay.
I think it's storyline poignancy, kind of bald poignancy that I liked about that, and because it's true theatricality.
Sure.
Not the black and white version, which was excellent.
Right.
But it true, again, suggestive.
Right.
And that's the true power that we have over any other form of performance.
Yeah. What's a guilty pleasure?
A guilty pleasure. Well, right now it's grandchildren.
Okay.
So a 5-year-old who lives in California and a 15-month-old who lives in Waco. So those are indeed.
How often do you get to go out to California?
We've been twice this summer.
Okay.
And they live north of LA, and so they live in Los Padres National Forest. So it's a recreation, but it's recreation because of Barrett, who's a frisky little 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So
Well, good for you.
I think that's the guilty pleasure.
Are you just pampering the heck out of those kids?
Yeah. When it comes to, we're not buying. We're careful about the buying thing. Obsessive because my parents were that way.
Okay.
And we didn't want to go that direction where there was dependency on what did you bring me.
Sure.
Kind of quality.
Brought you my heart.
Yeah.
And
And it's about physical activity for him. So it's my wife and I both. Okay, we're going to run.
Right.
Run because his parents are athletic and so
Right.
So we're gonna play ball. Now we're gonna run to base, and now we're just going to see who beats because he knows he's the fastest.
Sure.
The true. I love Elizabeth being 15 months and how she ponders the moment.
Sure.
And those are so theatrical. To be able to play the moment.
Yeah.
And not be concerned with where my arm is or my adolescent nature.
There's a lot to learn.
Are too long,
a lot to learn from innocent children.
Yes.
As a theatrical technique or just a life skill.
It is. I always said, keep your childlikeness.
Oh yeah.
Don't start out being cynical in New York.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I are both theater teachers, and we have 2 daughters, and so our kids are in it to win it. They're they are stuck whether they want to be there or not. So and they're both theatrical, and they're both gonna be who they are, and it's great. We embrace it.
Our daughter has a degree in theater, but she's a mom right now.
Right.
And, loving that. Our son, expresses it in the expression of where they live in the mountains.
Yeah.
So it's wow, man. Certainly, encourage all, be kind. Louida Marsh would say that just as a lover of students for all the years that she did. I would say be comfortable taking risk.
Sure.
The risk factors of thinking that you don't know if you're going to succeed, rather than thinking I have to succeed first before I try it. And that's where I think the leaning toward, I'm really good in math. But, when you start looking at math and physics and chemistry and all of those, look at the number of plays that have been written about physics alone in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And, there's a little bit of trivia from that, but inspiration occurs in the oddest moments, in the most peculiar places. My first trip to Ireland, I just lost my father, and so it was certainly emotive in that regard, even though he had been ill, and I exploded with poetry. Mm-hmm. I'd never written poetry before, and that explosion was certainly emotive, but it was also explosive because it was all concrete poetry.
Sure.
And E. Cummings, certainly an aficionado of him, and the explosion of how he was so theatrical and how he placed letters on the page. And so I began kind of dealing with my grief and then dealing with the beauty of Ireland, mm-hmm. And the beauty of the people, mm-hmm. In so many ways through those poetic expressions.
Sure.
So it didn't really matter to me if people really understood it or not, because if they would just look at it and ponder it, then they would find it. And that's all about subtext.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, good. Well, thanks, Jim.
Minor